Alright, and welcome back. In the previous video, I was doing a lot of deburring of the vertical stabilizer components. As you see here, I've got parts laid out on a board getting ready to put primer to them. So I'm doing some final deburring. I finally got the tool that I was talking about, the extension for the hole deburr tool. So I was finally able to get that through Cleveland Aircraft Tools. And that's one thing that, getting ready for this project, I ordered all of my parts from Cleveland Aircraft Tools. And they've got on there a kit of tools, I guess you can call it, that's specifically designed for several of the Vans aircraft models, the 10, the 14 in this case, even the 12. And they're tooling that's supposed to be geared towards what you should need for the various parts of the build process. It's pretty inclusive from what I can tell so far. Several of the tools as I've discussed before, I inherited from my grandfather-in-law, and so it helped when it came to purchasing tools as far as the pocketbook goes. I think the average kit runs somewhere around $2,400 or so, somewhere between $2,400 and $2,700, depending on which kit and which pieces of the parts or tool kit that you need, because you can go through and you can customize what tools you actually want as part of the kit, and you get a discount when you purchase the kit. I think it works out to be something like an 8% discount or something toward that effect. So, being that I inherited several things, the pneumatic squeezer, the C-frame dimpler, and various handheld tools, it saved me some money as far as ordering the kit. I think the pneumatic squeezer is $600 alone for the squeezer and the various pieces that you purchase for it, dies and dimplers and things like that. So that helped tremendously. So it's you can go on to Vans Aircraft website and see what the kits are going for price wise. I think when I purchased this kit, it was right around $4,500, I believe, plus the shipping cost was, I think, another $150 from Oregon to here in Arizona. So the total cost to start was probably somewhere around $5,500, maybe $6,000 by the time I include the drill press and all the other tools that I had to purchase to get ready for the build. So it's not extremely expensive, but there is an added cost that you have to take into account above and beyond the cost of the kit itself. So here you see me going through and deburring the interior side of all of the holes that I had deburred previously. Just going over and making sure that, again, all the edges are cleaned up. And now I'm going to be getting ready to, I'm using a cleaner to wipe off any grease or anything from the surface of all the parts before I apply the primer. And I'm being overcautious. I don't really need to use the gloves, but being overcautious. And it's using acetone is what I'm using. And so I'll apply acetone to all the surfaces of each part before I get ready to prime it. And then the primer I'm using is a self-etching spray-on primer. It's quick drying. I think that within... on average, I'd say within 10 to 20 minutes you can handle the pieces. And I'm only putting a light coat of primer on each of these components. And again, all of the interior pieces, the skeleton essentially of each surface, I'm going to apply primer to, but the skins itself, I'm not gonna paint the entire surface of the skins, just where the skeleton makes contact with the skin itself. So beyond that, it's like I said, the tooling and whatnot, there's several places that you can go to. I chose Cleveland Aircraft Tools, but there are certainly others that you can go through. When I looked at them, they were all about the same price range. I think when I looked, Cleveland Tools was a slightly, and by slightly I mean just a couple dollars difference between the total price of the kit for what I needed, and it was about 4 or 5 days shipping coming from, I believe it's Ohio that it's coming from. It wasn't too bad. 4 or 5 days delivery time for it. So then here I'm just applying the primer. Like I said, light coats, and I'm only doing a single coat essentially. Don't need a whole lot of primer in my opinion. Like I said before, I don't really believe in primer, and I also don't believe in applying primer just to make a selling point later on. I'm not building this aircraft for somebody else. I'm building it for me to use, hopefully for a good amount of time. But there are some that talk to applying primer whether you believe in it or not, just so that you can sell the plane later on. And to that thought, I think that, like I said, I'm building this for me, and if and when I do decide to sell it, if someone doesn't want to purchase the airplane because they don't believe it has enough primer applied to it, there'll be somebody else. I'm not too terribly worried about it. As long as the craftsmanship is good and the airplane is in good condition when I do go to sell it, I think that is going to be the overriding factor. It's not going to be the fact that I didn't put primer on every single surface. But of course, that's, again, the great debate that will forever go on, whether or not to prime. And you'll have intelligent people on both sides of the argument tell you why they're correct. So it's going to be it's going to come down to your personal choice and who you tend to follow and believe as far as whether or not you decide to apply primer. And I think so far to this point, I've applied primer to the vertical stabilizer skeleton pieces. I'm actually at this point, as I'm editing this video, I'm actually working on the rudder, and I've also applied primer to the rudder skeleton pieces. As I explained before, I ran into a couple of issues with both the skin there that I'm holding in my hand and the rear spar doubler for the vertical stabilizer, in that I had to reorder those two pieces. And Vans is pretty good as far as pricing for individual pieces. They're not overly priced, and again, that's why they have you start on the empennage kit, because they are the cheaper components as far as replacement. And as you're biting your teeth into new processes and how to build an aircraft, it's better to make mistakes on these parts because they're cheaper to replace than it would be later on. You wouldn't want to start on the wings and be countersinking into the main spar for the wings and dig out too much material. That would not be a cheap piece to replace. So the idea being that you get all your mistakes out early in the process and on the more inexpensive parts. So because I had to wait for them to come in the mail, I decided to continue on to the next step, which is the rudder. And I'm now nearly complete with the rudder, and I'm going to go ahead and finish that out before I go back and finish the vertical stabilizer. So here I'm just roughing up the edges of the vertical stabilizer skin, all the areas where the holes are. That's where I'm going to be applying the primer, and so I was just roughing up the skin there to help the primer adhere a little bit better. As I said, it's a self-etching primer, so I don't know that you really have to do that, but I decided, you know, it's not going to hurt anything, so might as well do that. And so now I'm just using the acetone again and cleaning up and degreasing the interior of the skins, getting ready to paint. And as you can see from that angle, it's just applying a primer to the edges where the holes are, where the skeleton will contact the skin. I had one person ask me if I was going to paint the entire airplane, and no, you know, like I said, as far as the primer goes, only parts where I need to, and even that I think I'm doing more than I really need to. And then the exterior of the plane, obviously, I will apply a primer to the entirety of the exterior before I apply the final coat of paint when I do design that. But as far as the interior goes, no, it's just going to be where I need paint, where I need primer, not the entire surface of the interior. And again, here I'm looking at the instructions, trying to verify the next step, and trying to be extra careful in ensuring I understand what's coming up. One thing I'm still working on is the discipline to read the full step, make sure I understand the full step, and then reread the full step just to make sure. It's caught me a couple times. And here I'm taking pictures for the blog that I'm putting together, as well as I'm making this video blog, but I also have a blog, just postings of my progress. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and let this video run out here. Again, thank you for watching. If you have any comments or questions, by all means, leave them below, and I'll try to answer them as best as I can. So again, thank you for watching, and hopefully we'll see you in the next video.